So my name is Taiwa Folabi, and I'm a Canada researcher in social engaged theater. I'm the founder and the director of the Center for Social Engaged Theater at the University of Regina, and I'm also connected with Theatre Ministry International and Mobile Research Lab. So what I'm hoping to cover in the next 15 minutes or so is really the art of grantsmanship. That's what I've titled it. In terms of what I'm hoping, the objective of my presentation is really to provide an overview and fundamental information about grantmanship. And really my objective is really to hopefully change our mindset about grants, to highlight some key guiding principles, to speak about process and procedure. What do you need to do before you start grant writing, during the process and after the process, to walk you through a little bit of the application, the timeline, the application format, and other aspects such as references. So why am I qualified to give am I qualified to give advice? Because that's always for me, I always start from that place of positionality because it's really very important. I I've had the privilege to be reviewed and to review other people. I've won a million. I've won over $1 million in grants, in funding, in-kind support. I've reviewed hundreds of funding and admission applications. I have led and continue to lead initiatives that have garnered millions in grants, from Theatre Ministry International to my center, a Center for Social Engaged Theatre, to Scholarship IQ, to many of the, a lot of the things that I'm doing. I really continue to not just only lead and continue to lead, but also support other people in accessing funding for their program. And many of my mentees, they've graduated from PhD, master's program. Some of them, have become postdocs. Some of them have entered into PhD graduate programs, and some of them fully funded, some of them partially funded, and all of that. So I've mentored researchers who have won grants and graduated from graduate programs. And again, I've led and co-led different grant scholarship capacity building, including Research Hub, Freezer Foundation, Scholarship IQ, Scholarship Lab, Mobile Research Lab, the Center, and of course different things like that. So, in terms of offering an introduction to the art of grantmanship, for me, it is the art of acquiring peer-reviewed research funding. And I wanted to mark the word peer-reviewed there because peer review in the academia, a major part of our process is collegiate and it is peer reviewed. Whether you do publication is peer reviewed, your research proposals are they are peer reviewed, funding applications they are peer reviewed. It's really important to understand what peer review means. It's the process where people that are in your field or close to your field, some of your colleagues, those that are, they review your work to give you feedback to determine based on their expertise and their knowledge, and they are looking at your proposal in regards to that is this project feasible? The kind of team or the individual that is proposing this idea or this initiative, do they have what it takes to do it? What's the knowledge mobilization strategy? What's the methodology? Is the literature section, is it sound, and all those kind of things? And most importantly, what's the ultimate impact of that research? Because we have to also understand that whatever funding that you have that we receive, it has a purpose, right? It's either coming from taxpayers' money or a philanthropy saying, hey, I want to offer this for their, for a common good. Okay. And I think this is where the change of mindset really need to start. A lot of us coming from a different, depending on different socio-cultural and socio-economical perspective where we are coming from, we always think the idea of getting funding is to change our economic status. We're always coming from this deficit mindset many times, if I may, which need to change, right? I've had stories of many researchers where they got funding for that particular thing, but they ended up using it to build a house or buy a car, and they ended up not using it for what they were meant to use it for. I think that's the first place where the mindset need to change. That the funding that we want to get is actually to do the research, to do the work, to be able to benefit our community. It's for a good community good. The second mindset I need to change based on this is that it's a we need to come at this from a strength-based approach. It's not from a poverty mindset to say, well, I need the money because, well, they're not giving you the money because you don't have anything to give. They are giving you the money because they believe that your idea is what investing in. So we always need to ask ourselves, what idea are we trying to propose? Why are we proposing it? How do we want to do it? And all of that. The change of mindset is really critical, and I cannot overemphasize that because we realize over the years, and again, I've had the privilege to review so many applications, and then somebody start telling you, well, I need the money because I come from a family of 10 and I'm the only one that went to school, like, no, not at all. I'm not gonna give you money like that. Um, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? How is that research going to benefit your community? How is it going to benefit your state, your country, and all of that? So grantmanship is the art of acquiring peer-reviewed research funding. You see, just that line alone can help us to really rethink um, our mindset and change our perspective to funding as it generally. It's important to consider both the quality of the science and the quality of the grant application. I spent a little bit of time to kind of talk about it because this is again very important. I have seen applications where the quality of science is top notch, but when I saw the quality of the grant application, it was nothing to write home about. At the same time, I've seen the other side of it, where the quality of the grant application is top notch, but the quality of the science itself is nothing to write home about. And when I'm using the word science here, I'm not talking about science as a field alone. I'm talking about science as the idea, the research itself, the initiative, the proposal that you're talking about, the issue, the problem that you're wanting to resolve through research, and the methodology, the literature review, the everything, like the what, the why, the how, the when, everything that is involved. That's what I mean by the quality of the science. So both of them has to be apart. Unfortunately, I have seen some applications where the quality of the grant writing was great and the quality of the science was not that great, but they still got it anyway because they understand that grant writing is also it. There's a formula to grant writing, and many people, when you get it, you just keep getting it because now you get the formula and all of that. But I don't want us to consider that. I want us to always think about the quality of the science and the quality of the grant application. So some conceptualization as I move further in this presentation is one, the art of grant writing will not turn mediocre science into a fundable grant proposal, but poor grantmanship will and often does turn very good science into an unfundable grant proposal. It's really important to consider the quality of the science and the quality of the grant writing. And that's why I always say your first draft is not going to cut it. In fact, so for some people, your second, third draft will not cut it. Um, and some would say, yeah, I've done this many times, so don't worry, it's fine. What I've come to realize is that even the more you do it, the more you realize that you need more time to do it. Because if you've won this before, you've won something before, you're trying to apply, that means there's a level of expertise, there's a level of expectation quality that has been given to your work already. And you want to always stop, be better each time you're putting something in. So don't just put in anything, right? The quality is really critical. So before you start writing, it's important to read the guidelines. It's important to read guidebooks if there are any, to look at look carefully at the application form and follow them exactly. Read the eligibility, read the requirements, the timeline. Like it is really, really important to really consider all of that. When you want to execute, good writing will not say bad ideas. Bad writing can kill good ones. So prepare multiple drafts. I've had the privilege to do an application um, that was worth over a million, and it took me 8 good months to get it together. Yeah. Now remember, what's at stake is almost $1 million, right? That's a lot of money. But for me, it's not even about the money alone. It's the fact that the process of walking through multiple drafts help you to refine. All right. And then of course, ask review from trusted colleagues and partners. Please circle the word trusted, because you don't want somebody to take your idea and run away with it. Again, we've had experience like that where somebody just read it and then they run away to go write something based out of the idea and different things like that. Um, and this is why I always talk about epistemological and intellectual humility. That, many times some people just write things for themselves to themselves and then they submit it and they won't have anybody review it for themselves. And I'm like, that's a recipe for disaster in my opinion. Now, I may not, my approach may be different from your approach and other people's approach. It's fine. But my own approach is that when I write multiple draft, I then ask trusted folks to review it. For most of the time, I don't just ask people in my field to review it alone. I ask people outside my field to review it. Because many times the committees that are constituted, the review committees that are constituted to review these applications, they are what is called interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary, or experts that are coming from multiple disciplines. They will take a look at your application. So imagine you in social sciences, particularly you are in accounting or finance, and then somebody, a lawyer, somebody in the legal field comes to come and take a look at your application. Or you are a theater artist or a performer or a dancer or an anthropologist or a linguist writing a proposal, and somebody from economics has to review your application. So it's always important to ask for feedback from trusted colleagues and partners who are not only within your field, who are outside your field, and they can give you that perspective from their own field so that your research can be relatable across multiple disciplines. When you want to submit, it's important to do your due diligence due to logistics and technical issues. I always recommend that you submit days or hours before the deadline. I have to say, myself personally, it's something that I'm still working through myself, because I don't want to be the kind of person that tell you I do this like this, and internally I'm not doing it that way. And the reason why for that for me is that it's always I'm juggling to multiple things at the same time. So what I try to do most of the time is to have a very clear timeline. I manage my project in a way to say, okay, this funding application is closing on the 22nd of this month, for example. I want my first draft to be ready maybe by 10th of the month, and then by 10th of the month, maybe by that 10th, I send, and that draft that I say will be ready by 1st of the month, by 10th of the month, it is not my first draft. Most of the time, it's like my second or my third draft. And then by that time, I now send it to somebody. I will give them some couple of days. Now, I would have informed them ahead of time. Again, because when you want somebody to review your work, it's important to also be mindful of them. I've had situations where people, folks reach out to me to review their work, and they're like, "When do you need it?" And like, "Oh yeah, prof, sorry, it closes today." "Oh yeah, it closes in the next 5 hours." Or if I can, and I'm like, "No, we all have things that we're doing. So your inability to plan properly cannot then trump my own schedule. So it's important to inform them ahead of time. And so if I'm sending that thing on that draft on the 10th of April of on the 10th of the month, for example, I've informed them maybe 1 week ahead. And I would let them, please, I'm sending this to you in another X number of days. I was hoping that you can please help me take a look at it and offer me your feedback in another 1 week. Like I would have prepped them ahead of time. So by the time I'm sending it to them, they know already. It's not meeting them, just like that, unprepared. So consider the deadline, and then by the time they send it back to me, and then I review another. So I'm aiming that I want to submit this either on the 20th of that month or on the 21st. And the reason is because many of these portals, and they have technical glitches almost at the last end, because everybody's trying to cram and trying to submit things, and at times it just collapses and all of that. So you want to ensure that you submit ahead of time. After you've submitted, wait patiently. That it's always the game of patience, right? It's a game of waiting. You have to wait for to hear back from them. At this point, you can do nothing again. It is what it is, right? And then from there, some people would modify the proposal, send it to another application and other things you want to use it for. Regardless, at the end of the day, you have to wait. And what do you do during waiting? Some people pray. That's where your faith comes in. Some people pray. Some people, they take off their mind from it. We deal with waiting differently. So however way you want to deal with waiting, you know what? Deal with it in your own way. It is important to always remember that the result of your application does not define you. If you receive the funding, amazing. If not, you learn from the experience and you move on. And I'll give an example. I applied for a fellowship some couple of months ago, and this is really very recent, extremely recent. And then 2 weeks ago, they got back to me that I was not selected, and they told me they only had 6 slots for the fellowship. They had 800 applications for the fellowship, and they shortlisted 30. I was part of the 30 that they shortlisted, but I didn't make it to the 6. So many times what you're applying for, it's limited. The spots are limited, and at the end of the day, the reality is that everybody can't get it. Yours will come. If you know somebody that got it, celebrate with them. Um, because I found that many people, this is where they give up. They apply the first time, the second time, the third time, nothing happened. The fourth time, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm done." And and I've learned to be resilient over the years through this process. One of my mentee recently, we've been applying for so many things for him. He's been applying. I write letters upon letters upon letters, and I'm going to come to letter of recommendations at some point, by the way. And then he almost gave up, and I'm like, listen, you can't give up now. No, let's keep pushing. Let's keep doing it. Recently, guy just got 2 fully funded admissions, a PhD, and he's like, okay, prof, which one am I going to choose now? And then of course, then they got a job, and we started laughing, and I'm like, you see, this process is actually to make you, okay. And again, this is where the shift of mindset also comes in, is that when we see this process of grantmanship and writing grants and all of that, if we see it as a process to help us transform us, refine us, help us to be better, a better version of ourselves, help us to better hone our skills, it changes so many things. Okay, we're not just attached to the result alone. The result is good. We all want the result, and if we don't have result, then we're gonna be terrified, obviously. So we need result. Don't get me wrong, but always remember that your result, the result of your application does not define you. If you receive the funding, it's great. If not, ask yourself, what do I need to do differently, and move on. There are times that you might, some of the funding will say, yeah, we're happy to give you feedback. At times they'll say, no, we can't give you feedback. So again, it depends. Context is critical here. Ask if they give you feedback, or if they don't. If they don't give you feedback, it's fine. Take a look at the application again. What can I do differently this time around? And all of that. What can I do differently next time? And if they give you feedback, take it, look at it, and revise it. Again, it's the same thing when you're publishing your paper. And I know that's another episode we're going to talk about. You write a paper, you submit it, and they reject it, they give you feedback, you revise it, you say, like, this is the way we're formed, this is the way we're forged, right? It's through that process of doing it again over and over that we get better at it, and then we can able to mentor and raise other people. Because this process also trains us, this process mentors in worship and order. The last thing I'll talk about is the letter of recommendation, and I don't have it on my slide here, so my apologies. Many of these research funding opportunities will ask for letter of recommendations, or they'll say submit a name, and they'll move forward depending on the funding the research funding you're applying for. It's always important to carefully consider your letter, who your referees will be. Some funding are really critical about big names, some are not. And most importantly, the quality of the letter they will write for you, and the time in which the person will invest in it. Some people want, big name to write for them, but if they won't have time, you have to follow them or follow and follow and follow. And then when they write a letter for you, it's really because they don't have the time, or they are not close to you. They don't really know what you're doing. They may not write a quality letter. There is no one way there is no one way to do this. There are multiple ways to do it. You only need to understand your context and the kind of funding that you're applying for, and then take cue. My recommendation all the time is whoever that's going to be your referee, just that your reviewer, the person that you want them to review your work, review your work before you submit. For your whoever that want to review that you want them to write letter for you, reach out to them ahead of time. Don't reach out to them 24 hours or 48 hours before, because people are busy. Um, and again, you're asking them to do something for you that will benefit you. Most times it doesn't benefit them, right? Most time it's service and work for them. So it's always important to consider over and over again. Put that time allowance, at times 3 weeks, at times 4 weeks, at times some people will say you have to give me 8 weeks ahead, or 4 weeks, or 6 weeks, again depending on your context. But it's always important to consider carefully who you are going to ask to serve as your referee. The last thing I will say as I wrap up here is the idea of really considering who your reviewers will be. When you're writing your application, it's always important to think on the other side. Who is going to review it? How would this look like? How would they read this? Is my methodology clear? Is my research question clear? Is my objective clear? The impact of my work, is it clear? It is really important to consider who is going to be on the other side. Some applications, some funding opportunities rather, they will make those names known. Some do not. Some will make it known after. And there's a reason why they don't make it known before. Just conflict of interest. We don't want people reaching out to people and all of that, just to, for safety and security and all of that. But some applications will actually release the names of the reviewers when the round is over, and then they keep it there. Now, the reason why they release it, you can then go and look at the archive of the kind of people who have served, the kind of experts or the expertise that these people have, for those who have served over the years in their review committee. That can also help you to have an idea of who is going to be taking a look, at least an idea of who's going to be taking a look at your application. Okay, with that, I want to bring this presentation to a close by saying, listen, whatever your endeavor is, i.e., it's funding in this context, looking for research funding, what we're doing, I thought, is we're doing well, because it's a representation of who you are. Think about partners that you want to collaborate with. There's so much about impact making. There's so much about collaboration and partnership in research, right? And in research at the moment, there's so much about interdisciplinary collaborations and transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. Different funding opportunities have adopted different approach and all of that. What is most important is to consider all of these things. And I would say, if you don't have the capacity to do it, when you get the funding, then you have to do the work. If you don't have the capacity to, then don't. If you have the capacity to, then sure. And start you looking at this process as a way to build you, to develop you, to help you further hone your research skills. Um, and really wishing you the very best as you move on in doing the work that you want to do. Thank you so much. Blessings. I hope that this all of this is useful.